Hello, everybody, and welcome to Primetime Mitch. And today I'm going to be discussing guilty pleasure movies. And I welcome the Big Llama Show to Primetime Mitch. Llama, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mitch. I'm excited to talk movies. It's kind of why I got on YouTube, man. I love movies and I love talking about movies, especially guilty pleasures, because I have a lot of them and they're very embarrassing. So I can't wait to get to them.
Well, I sort of went for top five, but obviously we can always throw honorable mentions in and things like that. But I want to know what would you class as a guilty pleasure? I mean, what makes it a guilty pleasure?
It's I looked at that a couple of different ways because then I have, and so I don't know if you can see it, but I have a long list here. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, no, I wrote down a bunch of things. What I would classify as a guilty pleasure is a couple of ways. One is if the movie is terrible, like it's universally known as a terrible movie, but you love it anyway, right? You
Yeah.
you absolutely love the movie, and so that's one. Or it's one of those things where you're not supposed to like it, whether it's a musical or whether it's a kids movie, and you kind of are a little embarrassed to be able to recite the movie. Those are guilty pleasures for me. And anything romantic that makes you cry, also guilty pleasure, because I am an emotional crier in movies. So all of those classify as guilty pleasures for me.
That's good enough. I think I certainly, my very small list I put together, it's mainly things that are universally seen as being truly awful.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I have a
but
couple of those.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll think of some along the way. I mean, and also as well, I think the nice thing is there's probably going to be some, well, there will be some in your list which I won't have seen that I'll want to go and try out. And I suppose that's the whole point of these kind of channels, isn't it? So.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about it too. I was like, I wonder. And again, because we are obviously in two different in locations, I'm like, wonder what movies he's gonna tell me about. Because now I'm gonna be interested. So yeah, I can't wait to hear your list as well.
Well, I am going to let you kick us off here, Lama, with your, well, in no particular order, I don't think, unless you have an absolute number one prize winning guilty pleasure.
No, no, no particular order because I could not rank them. But I'll start with the category of just a completely horrible, terrible movie that universally is not liked. Well, I don't think it's universally not liked. I just think it's not appreciated. It is the movie UHF by Weird Al Yankovic. Um,
Oh,
so if I describe it to you, it in a sort of way, it's just kind of him doing vignettes and skits throughout the movie, and there is a story behind it, but it's essentially just highlighting his comedy, his spoofs, and it is just it's one of those movies I just sit down and I can watch at any time, and I laugh every single time, and there are just funny moments and stupid moments that I shouldn't laugh. And I hate to say this, but there's just a dumb moment where there's a pet guy who teaches dogs how to fly. I'll just leave it at that. And see that, and that's the exact reaction you get. It's cringe and
yeah.
funny all at the same time.
I think you kind of with when it comes to sort of the guilty pleasure category with comedy, because comedy is so universal and it is down to taste, you can almost get away with that. You say, well, it's what I find funny, you might not, but so I like
Yeah.
that. Is it sort of it? So is it more sort of a series of showcasing his comedic act, or is it sort of a series of separate stories that are almost like sketches? Because I've not seen this. I know Weird Al Yankovic, but I've never seen that movie in particular.
So the story premise is that he inherits or takes over. I forgot how he gets it, but he gets a TV station, and he has to create programming for the different channels on this station. And so what you see is what he's going to play on these channels, and they are ridiculous commercials for TV shows that would never make the air, and just interesting comedy like bits that he has. The whole story is how does he keep the station, and
Oh,
it
so
has support.
there is
Yeah,
an
there's a
underlying story.
Yes, there's an actual story which most people don't really care about, but the funny thing is there are actual big actors in this movie playing bit parts that you just go, what? There's I think the guy from Seinfeld, Kramer from Seinfeld is in this. The nanny, I forgot, Fran Drescher. There's actors from General Hospital, from all these different movies and things, and you go, what are they doing in this movie? But they're there, so it's fun.
I think you can get the odd comedy gem made in that way. I always like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and things like that are very sort of similar movies. It's not really about the story, it's mainly about the guy.
Yeah.
So okay, that's a good start. Looking at what I've written down here, I'm going to go with the more ridiculous, because I like my horror, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
And there's a couple in here. And one of them is one that is me and my partner actually really liked this movie when we were expecting to turn it off after 5 minutes. And it's a found footage film, which I only like a few. But this one in particular, I thought was going to be awful, and I was ready to turn on to something else. And it's called Gags the Clown.
Oh God, clowns!
Yeah. Now,
oh no.
Exactly. It depends what you think about clowns. I can sort of take them or leave them. I'll watch it. If I don't like it, it's nothing to do with being afraid of clowns. It's just more to do with, there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of clown movies out there. But this one it's basically, I don't know if you remember, it certainly happened over in the UK, but there was like a point in time where people were going out at night dressed as clowns and scaring people, and just like standing on the corner of the street and with a balloon and then disappearing. And it happened for quite a while, and it was quite disturbing. And
that sounds horrific. That sounds horrific.
It was horrific. But this story centers around, it's a particular clown that keeps getting seen every night called Gags. And it's again, this is something I thought would turn me off. It's all very social media related. Everybody's sort of getting photographs and videos of the spotting Gags the clown, and it goes out viral and all that. Unfortunately, there's a news crew wants to find out who he is, and they go a bit too far into trying to find out who he is. And the kids of the town think it's wonderful, and it's a real an opportunity to cause trouble and stuff, and it ends up being a lot deeper than just somebody dressing up in a suit. I thought I'd hate it, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm not suggesting watching it, but
I mean, it sounds interesting, but it sounds like it would scare the living shit out of me. Like what you describe, hold on, what you would describe happening in real life, I think scared me more than the movie itself. Because the movie, I can say, oh, it's a movie, it's not real.
Yeah.
But if I walked in the streets and I saw a clown just randomly disappear, you would see me disappear. Like you'd have to find me.
I think it must have been based around that kind of story. I think it was more the idea was good. And I think when a movie's got a good idea, sometimes I'm not too bothered if they don't 100% carry it out the right way. If they get 60-70% of it right, I'm okay with it. But this one, I just seem to not want to finish. I wanted to keep watching and I wanted more, I'm looking for a sequel, and nobody even knows about this movie. And I think it's got about 49 on Rotten Tomatoes or something, but which is actually pretty decent considering nobody knows what it is.
That's not, 49. And sometimes you have to take that with a grain of salt with Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes,
I'm saying it just like you. Tomatoes.
It's rubbing off.
It is. I promised myself I wouldn't do an accent tonight because I am notoriously bad at accents. All my accents become Jamaican accents. So I promised myself I would not even attempt it. Even though I told my kids I was meeting you tonight, and I said he's from across the pond, and they were like, "Oh my God!" And I said, I'm not going to do an accent, I promise. And here I am, Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a start.
It's a start. It's a start.
Okay, what else have you got for me?
Okay, so this one is because I think you went deep cut. You went deep cut with that one because Gags the Clown, I've not heard of that one. I don't know if this is a deep cut for you, but this is, I think, a movie that not a lot of people that I know of know this movie, but it's called Streets of Fire. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's one of those that tried to do something different. It's an old 80s movie. It's like, I think 1984, 1985.
Yeah.
It stars Willem Dafoe in leather overalls. And what I mean by that is that it's a musical. It's like a stylized comic book type movie. It's like a brawling movie. Like they're fighting. There's singing. There's action set pieces. It's a mishmash of just a lot of different things. And I don't know that it worked for the time, but as an impressionable young kid in the 80s, the movie was just something like visually, I was just like, I couldn't turn away. And so the music in it got me. And there's the actress Diane Lane is in it. She plays like a rock star, and she like lip syncs music, and she's got this one incredible song at the end, which I will not belt out for you here, but I've got the soundtrack. I've watched it over and over again. It's just one of those movies that just kind of captures your attention. And it's now I've watched it as an adult. It's not, the story is not very great, but I think it's one of those that catches you as a kid, and you go, oh, this is really good, and you watch it over and over again as a kid, but you don't realize what you're watching and why you're watching it. And now it's okay, but I still will watch it to this day, and I love the music. So Streets of Fire from 1980 something.
I just brought it up actually, just to take a look at it, and it seems to have a lot of sort of genres rolled into one.
It
They've
does. It does.
they've called it here an American action crime neo noir film.
That's what I'm
Does
saying.
that suit it?
It does. It does. And that's what I'm saying. I couldn't describe it even when I watched it, even as an adult. I couldn't think of where does it fit. It looks like a comic book. It has music. It has action. It has, just ridiculousness, fighting, and like I just couldn't put it anywhere. And then so one of my favorites. But again, I know that not a lot of people liked it, and it didn't do a lot in the box office. But that's why it's a guilty pleasure. I love watching that movie.
That's a good shout, and it's got Rick Moranis in it as well.
Right. Again, there's a lot of actors in it that you go, and Rick Moranis plays a badass.
And Bill Paxton as well. Oh, I'm gonna have to watch this.
Oh yeah, Bill Paxton is he's oh god, he works at the diner. There's a lady who, oh my god, she was like in every 80s film you've ever seen. I forgot her name. But there's like this troupe of actors that you've seen in every 80s movie. They're in there.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so. No, it's just, again, when you watch it, it's an experience, I would say.
Well, that would be my type of movie. I'm big on the 80s, as you can tell.
Oh, okay.
I love my 80s stuff. So that's, again, this is great because this is just giving me a playlist. Right, my next one, I've actually got a really big poster of it on the wall, and I'm probably the only one that owns one. This is from 1990, and it is Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yes.
Now, so many people don't like this movie. And like, it's got a cast of Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, Melanie Griffith, Morgan Freeman, Kim Cattrall. There's names in there, and it is widely seen as an absolute shocker. Probably, I mean, you probably think so if you've seen it. It's got horrendous ratings, and I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen.
I think it's because the characters are so unlikable.
Yeah.
Like, they're so unlikable in what they do, and they're so opposite of what you know them for. And that's, I mean, it's got a 15% rating, I think, or something like that in Rotten Tomatoes.
15%.
Yeah. And so, but yes, that's, I mean, I think it's a great film. It's
incredible satire.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it in that way, because I think a lot of people's criticisms that it doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. But I think it really emphasizes people and their flaws and the system and society at the time, obviously, and just amplifies it, just turns the volume up on all of them. And to be honest, I think some of the dialogue in it is so quotable. But Morgan Freeman's performance is so understated in that movie. I know he hates it, but I think if there was more judges like him, we'd probably live in a better world.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I think in that switch between the 80s and the 90s was experimental, and looking back on the 80s, the greed and the excess and that stuff, it was one of those things where you don't want to see the ugly, right? And so when you see characters that are caricatures of what was happening in the 80s and the ugliness, you go, I don't know if I like that because it's too close to home.
I think there was a lot in the 80s of sort of denial when it came to what you've just said, where the ugly side of people and society. And I was talking the other day on a podcast about one I reviewed not long back, which was The King of Comedy. And Robert De Niro said they didn't want to, that it showed a side of people that nobody wanted to face, or something along those lines. And I think that denial went on for quite some time.
Yeah. I people don't want to. I guess when you go to the movies to escape, you don't want to see. Sometimes you don't want to see realism back at you. You want to see the escapism. You want to feel something different than what is actually happening. And when you turn the mirror and you say, "Look, this is exactly what the world looks like or feels like," you unless you're prepared for it, it's not a great movie going experience.
Agree. Yeah. And just quickly on that one, this is quite funny. The first time I was exposed to that film was I was watching a marathon of horror movies, and on a channel that was doing like a big, I think it was like a Halloween themed night or something, and they had a bunch of horrors on, and I thought that this was another horror. So I just stayed awake thinking, here we go, fourth movie of the night, horror film, and that came on, and it just hit me for six, and that's probably what made it funnier.
Yeah, you're like, wait, something's gonna happen.
Yeah. As soon as I saw Tom Hanks, I knew that, I wasn't in for that.
Can you imagine if Tom Hanks just showed up with a machete in that movie? Like, you'd be like, okay, I'm ready.
Well, he debuted in horror, so I don't know why he didn't throw the odd one in every now and again.
I you know what? That's what we need more of. Tom Hanks in horror movies. Let's write to Hollywood and say, let's make more of those.
Still time.
Yeah, he still got it. Okay, so now we get into more of guilty pleasure, only because when a movie is popular at one point, right, everyone loves it, and then people get tired of it, and if you're still watching it, then it becomes the guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
So I have to lump these two together. It's Grease and Grease 2.
Oh.
I lump them together because I love them both. I've watched them both, and I have both. But the hot take that I have, the controversial take, is that I like Grease 2 better. I know that yes, I know. And I prefer the songs, some of the songs in Grease 2. And the only reason I prefer them, I don't know why, is because I had the soundtrack and I listened to it on repeat. And I found the T-Birds in 2 to be more comical than the ones in part 1. But anyway, I love both movies. I don't dislike Grease 1. No one come for me in the comments or anywhere else. But yeah, that's a guilty pleasure. And especially when I say, yeah, I'd rather put on Grease 2 and listen to that soundtrack. People would just look at me like, what are you talking about? Grease 1 is the one. No, I understand that. But Grease 2 for me is my guilty pleasure.
I think number 2 definitely suffers from the success of the first.
Oh yeah.
We don't, me and my partner don't watch Grease 2 because we both agree that Michelle Pfeiffer is a ridiculous looking woman, and it's just better to just bow down to her and not watch it and put ourselves through it.
But okay. So let me ask you this. Was it Maxwell Caulfield? What's his name?
Maxwell Caulfield.
Yeah. So on your side of the world, how is he looked upon? Because on this side of the world, he was a one-hit wonder. Like he was here once and he was gone. Did he do other stuff?
I recall. I have to check this because I don't want to make myself sound stupid here. But this will answer the question entirely. I knew Maxwell Caulfield when I was a kid. He did a couple of like dodgy B movies and things. But here he is. Let me just check if I'm right here. I hope I am. I really hope I am. Television.
This is the hard-hitting stuff that we have to get down to business. We have to find out what he's done on
I've
the
got
other
it.
side.
Right. He came over to England, and he was in a show called Casualty, which is a long-running, a very long-running series, still going now. I think it was first broadcast in 1986, and it's still going now.
Oh my God.
It's incredible. And the one guy actually in it, I think, is still in it from 1986. He's never ages. He's had white hair for like 25 years. But Maxwell Caulfield came in as a sort of a brash overseas doctor. And that was the first time I ever saw him. He then went on to appear in Emmerdale, which is another series similar to, I don't know if you know British soap opera, but like we have Coronation Street and things like that.
Yeah.
Emmerdale is one that started in, I think it was first broadcast 1972. That's still going now. And he came in for, I think, 2 years or something. He always plays that suave, smooth guy that sweeps everybody off the feet. He's quite a striking looking guy.
Yes.
Just British soap operas really that he came to do.
Yeah, he was like I said, it was a weird dynamic to see him, in his singing style, and just, he wasn't John Travolta, and that's kind of what it suffered in Grease too. But I always liked the guy, but just like, why didn't he do more movies? And then he did come back to, I think it was Empire Records, or one of those movies, as like a caricature of who he was, and he was just really unlikable, cringy in that movie, but they did it for laughs. But anyway.
It's incredible how many actors will do that to resurrect careers or just keep the awareness up. I know when Ricky Gervais was doing his extras series over here, actors were just queuing up to play horrendous versions of themselves. There are two in here that are more sentimental.
Okay.
And this is the first. Jaws 4.
Well, hold on. That's not the one in the park?
No, that's
Jaws
not the 3D. Water park. No, I hate Jaws 3D. But Jaws: The Revenge, and I'm gonna get absolute pelters for that, right? But the reason being, when I was very young, my grandparents taped it, recorded it off the TV for me, and I used to sit and watch it. And I at that point, because I was really young, I hadn't even watched the first Jaws yet, and this was the first exposure to Jaws, so that was a good thing in itself. But even though it's terrible and it has the stupidest storyline about this frigging shark wanting revenge and traveling across to the Bahamas to get it, following this family. I mean, who wrote that and let it actually be made into a script is beyond me.
Yeah.
I do think the visuals in it are a lot more impressive than 3D.
Yes.
I think like there's a banana boat scene which I think looks fantastic, where it rises up out the water and the kids, and it clamps down on one of the kids. It's a really good scene, and it never gets any credit because the movie's so bad. I think the only criticism I'd aim at the attack scenes was the shark looks very dry. It looks like it's sort of just come out of the sky rather than the water. But I liked watching it because I thought it was so stupid. It was fun, and it also had Michael Caine in it, who I absolutely adore. So everyone hates that movie, rightly so. It's definitely the worst, I think. Although I think 3D deserves pushing into that category.
Yeah, no, 3D is the worst. Now for Jaws: The Revenge, yes, definitely left something to be desired. But you're right; it's visually way more appealing than 3D. I mean, all you have to do is point to the scene in Jaws 3D of them breaking the glass.
The final scene.
The final scene.
I've never seen a more disappointing conclusion to anything than that. Yeah.
I will say Jaws in all the Jaws movies, in which I've seen them all, just because I like to torture myself. It's the reason I don't go in the water. It's the reason that
Oh,
I
it
stay.
did it. It did its job then.
It totally did its job. I watched the first one when I think I was 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. I don't know why I watched it that young, but I did, and ever since then I stay on the high ground. So, but yeah, Jaws: The Revenge, and then you got Mario Van Peebles in Jaws. So
Yes.
that's a plus. That's a plus in my book. And obviously Michael Caine, any movie Michael Caine is in, which again I think we never appreciated Michael Caine in the 80s and early 90s. I think here in the States we appreciate him more as older Michael Caine, right? But we should have appreciated him back then, because he had some gems back then.
He also said, somebody said, like, why did you appear in Jaws: The Revenge? And Michael Caine said, I've never seen the movie, but I've seen the house that it paid for.
Yeah. Oh no. And listen, that's so honest, and I love the fact that he said that, because I think I'd say the same thing. I'd be like, hey, Jaws: The Revenge. There's the Lamborghini: The Revenge. There you go. Enjoy it.
Okay.
Oh man.
Go on. I've got my worst one out the way. So
okay, so you got your worst one. Okay, so now when you said sentimental, I was like, man, is he gonna cry? Because I'll cry with him, because and then you said Jaws, and I go, wait a second, it's not gonna happen that way. Okay, so I like, it's weird. I go in like clumps of movies, and like when I think of one, I think of like three others. But this one is truly a guilty pleasure, probably out of my complete range of movies. There's a movie, it's 1988 movie, Cocktail, starring Tom Cruise.
Oh yes.
Okay, so if you've seen that one, now I didn't know at the time that well, actually I did know that I had a huge movie crush on Elizabeth Shue. And
my dad does as well.
So when I saw Elizabeth Shue in The Karate Kid, fell in love, said this woman is just breathtaking. And then I got to see her as an older adult type character in Cocktail, and I said, this is it. This is the woman I'm going to marry. This is this is the woman of my dreams. But no, honestly, it's I again should not have seen this movie as young as I did. I did not understand the concepts, the themes, anything that was happening. But I loved it so much. I love the bartender Coughlin's Laws, and Tom Cruise was he's such a captivating looking, guy, and really just the whole thing was just, to me, beautifully shot. Like that's another thing I never appreciated about movies, was like they look so gorgeous back then, and I didn't know that until I get older and I watch Blu-rays now and 4K releases of them. The movie is gorgeous, but the story itself is a little terrible, right? But I love the movie. And now, again, as a youth, never once did I cry, never once did I get so emotional. And now, again, spoiler alert for anyone who's not, you've seen it? You just said you've seen it, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I've seen it.
Okay. So I've never once got emotional, and just recently I watched it again, and when Coughlin meets his demise, I was a mess. And I'm like, why am I crying? I knew it was going to happen, but I understood it. I understood the pain, I guess. I understood as an adult, I understood now why he did what he did, and so it hurt. And that's why I was like, man, I love this movie even more now. But it is a guilty pleasure. Not a lot of people like that movie. But I absolutely love it. So Cocktail with Tom Cruise and Elizabeth Shue. It should be Elizabeth Shue starring her first.
I like how you said you didn't get emotional when you watched it the first time until you got older. I think maturity is a very powerful development.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you watch a lot of Simon Pegg's work?
I have. I've done a lot on my channel on him, but maybe you've got a one that I haven't seen. I'm sure of it.
Well, I feel like you might have done it. He made a trilogy of movies. One was Shaun of the Dead.
I love that movie.
Yeah. One was Hot Fuzz.
Love that movie.
And the one that everyone always puts at the bottom of their list is at the top of mine, and that's World's End.
World's End. Yep.
I love that concept of going out on a, well, over here the pub crawl is just like it's the ultimate day out, and the thought of going out on a pub crawl while the world is ending or something like that, and him trying to finish it, and I just thought that was the coolest concept. It's very random, very weird. I've visited the town where it's shot as well, and I just really, really enjoyed that film. And everybody else always puts it right at the bottom, and it's between Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, and that one's always above them both to me.
Yeah, you know what it is what I think you hit it on the head, which is there's a randomness to what's happening in the movie, especially towards the end when things start unraveling and you figure out why things are happening. But at the core of that movie is the friendships and and again, I hate to put sentiment and feelings to everything, but that at the core of the movie is that those friends are like separating and moving apart. That pub crawl was the last thing that they hold on to. And yes, it's fascinating and it's crazy. And for me on this side of the world, it's like that pub crawl seemed like the most amazing thing to do. Like, I want to do that pub crawl. You can't do that here. You could, but it doesn't have the same feel.
I think there'd be a bit of distance, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
You need to get in a car or a cab or something. And
yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it just wouldn't feel the same. It doesn't have the same like luster or historical, like, again, you could go to 10 bars in a strip mall over here, but it doesn't feel like what that looked like. So but I absolutely loved that trilogy. But yeah, when you rank them, there was some randomness to it. There was a little bit difference in that movie, but absolutely love that movie.
I can definitely attest to the pub crawl being a fun thing. I mean, I know that in the movie they show that. I actually like the fact that they touch on the friends changing and not wanting to have fun anymore because they think that they've got to settle down and do serious things now, and he just wants to recreate his youth. And I kind of, even though he's a bit of an asshole throughout it, I feel a bit sorry for Anthony King in it. And also the fact that all the pubs have lost their character and they all look the same. That is absolutely happening. I mean, I've been on hundreds of pub crawls, and I really feel for him in that, because he really just wants it to be like it used to be.
Yeah. Well, they've all become corporate entities. They've all become like cookie cutter pubs, which all of them have the same drinks and they have the same bartender types. It's the same everywhere you go. It used to be very unique, and now it's just very business like, and it's sad. It's a sad sort of experience, but like I said, it still looked amazing from watching that movie. That I'd love to do a pub crawl for sure. Like, and
also Pierce Brosnan appears, and that again helps it out.
Of course. Come on, 007 shows up out of nowhere, and you go, "Hey, he's a good-looking dude."
Absolutely.
Okay, you got to tell me when we're close to the end, because I think I'm going to save one for the very end, which is my all-time, not my all-time favorite, but one of my favorites.
I've got one left, but if you want to sort of reel off a couple quickly or something like that, okay. I mean, I've got a couple in the back of my mind I might mention, but
okay. So let me go through what might not make the list, and I'll talk about this last one here, and I'll let you close the show. Love Actually, I have that on my list, and I know I mean, it's such a, I mean, I love that movie. Every Christmas I watch it. I cry. I did a reaction to it, I think 2 years ago, and I've watched it ever since. Let's see. So that, I love that movie. I lumped in a couple Disney movies, Little Mermaid and Lion King. I will watch those.
They're good.
Yeah, I will watch those and I will sing the songs along with Aladdin. Those three. I have Anchorman, which is, that's a funny movie. It's just a fun time. But I think the one movie that I find that people will make fun of me about a lot is Titanic. Titanic Titanic to me is the ultimate guilty pleasure movie for me because I embarrassingly will tell you that I have watched that movie in the movie theaters. I would probably say, obviously when it came out, I
Mm.
saw it.
Yeah, I did
I'm
too.
not even exaggerated when I say at least 7 or 8 times
Wow.
in the theater. I actually I bought the VHS, and then I over the years I lost it, and then I found I keep pointing in the wrong direction. I found it. It's back there. It's right there. I'm pointing to it. I found the VHS copy for 99 cents, and I bought it.
Lovely.
I have it. I have it on Blu-ray. I have it on 4K. I have it on DVD, and I watch it all the time. I absolutely love the story, even though I get mad at the end that there's enough room for Jack
Oh God,
on
yeah.
the. I think there's enough room, but there is just something about that movie that is just, and it's what, 3.5 hours of my
Yeah.
life that, um, but I will sit and watch it, and I will just be mesmerized by that movie every single time. And even though I know what's going to happen, I still get mad at Billy Zane. I still get mad
Oh,
when he's such a dick.
he's evil, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad
get
you
mad.
mentioned this.
Yeah, I get mad at the them locking him up under the thing. I get mad at I tear up when they show the couple. Again, I
Oh
know
yeah.
this movie inside and out. They show the couple laying in the bed when the water's filling up.
Mm.
The whole thing, like from beginning to end, I absolutely love it. And I will watch it over and over again. And I'll just watch it in snippets. I'll just like sit, and I'll be bored sitting in my living room, and I'll go, all right, I'll put Titanic on, and I'll watch a random scene for about 30-40 minutes before I have to go do something, and then I'll turn it off. It's just one of my all-time favorite movies. I'm sure guilty pleasure. And I think I tear up, and probably if I watch it all the way through, I'm definitely in the cry mode at that point. But if I'm just kind of passively watching it here and there, I'll just tear up or I'll get emotional. But don't ever let go, Jack. That, oh God, that line gets me every time. But yeah, and there was enough room, Rose.
Oh yeah, she was terrible. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Actually, you mentioned a really good list there, by the way. Can I just say my partner loves Love Actually, and I'm not as big a fan of it. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. But I'm really glad you mentioned Titanic, because I absolutely I've watched that, not in the movie theaters as much as you, but I'm certainly racking up the numbers. I actually last night, I put it on my letterbox just before I went to bed last night. But I watched A Night to Remember, which is the first Titanic movie. I think it's the first that they ever made, showing the whole thing. It wasn't like a documentary; it was a real drama movie from
Oh wow.
1958. And you can see that James Cameron has watched that movie, because the amount of dialogue that is used, that he reconstructs, it's honestly, it's so worth a watch. A Night to Remember 1958 is, for its time, it is incredible how they produced the ship sinking. So if you do take anything from this today, I definitely recommend that one, because you can see parts of the 97 movie in it. I think that is a guilty pleasure because it's so mainstream and so well known and so emotional that people sort of just they don't want to admit they like it as much as they do.
Right. I have no problem saying that I love that movie.
Mm.
What's funny is, as I've gotten older, admitting the movies that I love is not hard anymore. It used to be very embarrassing to rattle off the list of things that I love watching. Now I don't really care. I'm at that
It's that
point in my
maturity
life.
thing again, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm at that point where, you know what? I'm watching Armageddon. I'm gonna cry. So leave me
Oh
alone.
God.
So I'm totally ready for that type of thing. And honestly, the best parts is sharing movies with others, and that's kind of why I do
Yeah.
the reactions. So I love doing this stuff.
You mentioned Love Actually. I teased maybe putting in a Christmas movie of my own that everyone seems to think is awful. I wanted to put Christmas with the Cranks in, because I love that. I think it just feels like Christmas right from the start, and I just fills me with joy. But again, you look at the tomatoes score is like 9% or something. It's
Yeah.
widely seen as being shit. But anyway, my last one. I'm going to end on the horror because it's a sentimental pick. This is, if you can put the two together, sentimental horror. I am a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I mean, I've got a Freddy up there that I built. And I've got a lot of his stuff knocking around the place. But I have a soft spot for what's widely regarded as probably the worst, and that's Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. And
Oh.
yeah, now I shouldn't like this because I love dark, evil, original, scary Freddy Krueger, and in that movie, he's the most comedic of all. And I hate him being funny. I don't want him to be funny. He's not supposed to be funny. But the reason I like the movie is because it's the first ever VHS horror that my parents ever bought me. So they literally just went, you know what, he likes it. Let him watch it. They gave in. And it's the first one they ever bought me. And I got it for Christmas. I remember the VHS case. It had his hat and his glove and his sweater all piled up on the front. And I was so excited. And I think throughout, even though Freddy's probably the worst part of the movie, the best parts of it are without him. They have a town with no kids in it because they're afraid to have them in case he gets them. So the whole place looks like Twin Peaks. And you've got some really cool dream sequences. You get a lot of his backstory in there. They had really good ideas. They just executed it horribly and obviously turned Freddy into a Looney Tune. For that,
Yeah.
I get why people hate it, but I have a real soft spot for that movie because of it was the first one I was bought, and because I think with better execution, it could have been good.
Yeah. Freddy became more a comedy, a comedy trope than horror, sort of, villain, the more the movies progressed. But
Yeah,
I
from
did
4
enjoy,
onwards.
but I enjoyed every single one of those movies. I just kept thinking like they're getting cheesier.
Yeah.
They're getting a little bit more ridiculous, but I loved all the Freddy movies. And again, impressionable young kid. He did cause some sleepless nights. I have had nightmares of that, of him, chasing me or scratching me. I can see the sentimental value of getting that first VHS tape of a horror movie. Um, my my um my first VHS tape. I don't think I remember the first VHS tape because I was there for Beta, okay, Betamax and all that stuff.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm that old.
that's
Um,
great.
but yeah, there's just something about like having that time capsule in your hand, right? Like this is the first movie I've ever owned, I've ever had. And so never gonna knock somebody to say, hey, this is my favorite movie because of this value, this sentimental value to it. So trust me, that's a pretty cool story that
Well,
it's
my
the first one
partner's the
that you get to
same.
buy.
My partner's the same. She's more. I'm the Freddy guy, and she's Michael Myers. And
Oh, okay.
her first exposure to Halloween was Halloween 5, and I think that's a terrible movie. But
Yes,
she has
it's
a soft spot for it because it's the first one she ever saw, and she wouldn't have known about it, and if it wasn't for that movie. So she's the same in that sense, I think.
yeah, no, that's I again, this is just my thing, right? Is that movies and these experiences stay with you and they carry with you. And so this is why I love talking to people about movies, talking to you, Mitch, about this, and anybody who will listen to me about movies, is because there is something there for me, a connective tissue there that I can't shake. There's moments in movies, there's theme songs, there's just things that instantly like bring up something in my brain of a moment, right? And I'll share one last thing. I like Superman, the movie Superman. I
Yeah,
think it was Superman 2. My first come to the United States from South America. I just arrived in Florida. My mom takes me to a movie theater that's right down the street from our house. One of the first movies I see is Superman. In this theater that I've never seen a theater before in my life. You know, in Peru we don't have, again, we had theaters, but not where I was born.
Yeah.
We had dirt roads. So the minute I see Superman, the character, the minute I hear the music, instantly transported to 1984, and I know exactly where I was standing. I can even smell the popcorn. It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't remember what my wife said, 10 minutes ago, but I can remember 1984.
I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
But it's those connections that I absolutely love. And this is why I was like jumping at the chance to sit down with you to have a conversation about movies, because it's what I love to do. So thank you so much for inviting me to meet with you.
It's been a pleasure. I'm just say I'm so happy that you tapped into the emotional side of movies, because I think sometimes when you've got a guilty pleasure, it's because you react like that. Like, I'm not supposed to react like that, but one of the best examples, I could watch Steel Magnolias all day. I absolutely just break with that movie, and it's probably the only chick flick I actually really like. But it's absolutely beautiful, and I don't really ever admit to that too much. I think there's a wonderful cast, and Dolly's a queen, and Olympia Dukakis is just a goddess of a woman. But I never talk about liking that movie. But I like the fact that you talked about the emotional side, because it's because of that reason.
Yep. Again, that's why they're guilty pleasures, man. Sometimes you get a funny look when you say, hey, I love Steel Magnolias, and you just have to go with it. But again, it's so great. It's so great to have these guilty pleasures, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Llama, for allowing me to find some more guilty pleasures, probably from your list. And it's been a real fun experience talking about stuff like this, because often we sort of keep this stuff hidden. Not anymore. So thank you so much. And I'm guessing we can do this again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to find a better time for you, because I know it's late. We'll trade off. We'll figure out a better time. But absolutely, I welcome to have more discussions with you. And maybe even if we can coordinate it, maybe we'll do a reaction together or something. But absolutely, I'm more than welcome and open to do more of these types of discussions. So thank you again, Mitch, for inviting me and allowing me to do this with you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. If you have some guilty pleasures, which I've no doubt haven't been included in this show, please pop them in the comments below. Let us know what you like to watch, but don't like anybody else to know that you like to watch. And please smash a like and a subscribe below, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. Please go check out the Big Llama Show. He has a fantastic channel there with a lot of content very similar to the kind of stuff we talked about today. And this has been Primetime Mitch. This has been the Big Llama Show, and I will see you very soon.